What is up, y'all? We are back for episode 31. This episode, I thought it was going to be boring. The baby episodes typically, to me, are boring. But this was actually kind of entertaining. This was actually one of the more entertaining episodes of the season, if you ask me. I actually enjoyed a lot of moments, and I enjoyed a lot of these couples. There were some cracks that were definitely showing, which I find funny because the hood rats were in my comments talking about some Gracyn and Huda are going to be great for each other. They're going to be great for each other. I saw a lot of stop signs for both of them. But y'all will be happy, the hood rats will be happy to see that I am going to give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe my opinion is a little bit more unpopular in terms of how everybody else is reacting to how she was acting, but we'll get to that in a minute. But I do want to thank y'all. We hit 11,000 subs. That's crazy. We hit 11,000. I started the season, I think, with like 8,100. We're now at 11,000. Like I said, I want to hit 12,000 by the end of the season. It's probably far-fetched, but let's try and get as close as we can to it. If we end up getting it, I'll be shocked and I'll be extremely grateful. But please thumbs up the video. Let's try and get 1,000 likes on this. I think we got really close last night. Let's do it again. Get in the comments, subscribe, share the video, and I'll see y'all on the other side. Let's go. All right, so we start off with a scene with Olandria and Huda. They're pretty much talking about the recoupling. And Huda ends up asking Olandria how she's feeling about her and Nick. And Olandria's like, I mean, I'm happy. Like, I feel like this is a second chance for us to finally explore what this actually was. The first time we didn't get to explore it, but this time we have a clearer mind. We don't have any distractions. We don't have any connections that are still existing in the show. And that's pretty much what she's stating. And we already have like a great bond already set. Like the friendly foundation is already there. We can now start exploring on a romantic level. Huda then asks, are you actually attracted to him? And she's like, yeah, I am. She was like, moments were leading us back to each other for a reason. Production. It's production. But whatever. Y'all are here. We're going to roll with it. But they agreed that now they can talk as a couple this time. And now that they don't have those distractions or whatever. But Huda says she's excited for them and she thinks it's going to be fun to watch. But we then see Iris and Pepe. Iris and Pepe, they have probably the most, at this moment in time, the most boring conversations, if you're asking me. Like, they don't really talk about much. And it's like, with them finally getting to get to know each other, I feel like their conversations are very, like, surface level. Even though they're getting to know each other a little bit more, but it just seems surface level to me. But they feel good. They're excited about being coupled up, finally. And she ends up stating that she explored every person in his house, essentially, but him. And he says that he wants to talk to her every day. He likes talking to her. And the more he talks to her, the conversations are amazing. And obviously he's attracted to her and they're attracted to each other. He was like, we just got to let the emotions flow and see where it takes us. It ended up somewhere, but we'll get to it, where they completely forgot about Iris, forgot about TJ and Hannah like that. I was like, interesting. But Amaya and Bryan, they are in soul ties, and he's talking about how everything is supernatural with them and feels good. He lives in Boston. She lives in New York. They're on the same coast, and they're not too far from each other, so that could end up working. It could. But she ends up asking, like, do you see yourself coming to New York? And he was like, yeah, I was in New York before I came here. And they're talking about what their first date is going to be in New York. She's excited. He pulls her into kiss. Let me make that sure again and make that loud. He pulls her into kiss. A lot of y'all making it seem like Amaya is still initiating. She's not. Talking about she's very forward with her wanting to kiss. Obviously, she's going to want to kiss because that's somebody that she's interested in. Like, if you're interested in somebody and it's reciprocated, wouldn't you want to kiss too? But he's been initiating kisses with her too, and he did it here too. It's clear they're very attracted to each other. But they kiss, and she tells him he looks handsome. She also then tells us that she has no regrets, and she finally feels free. Like, she's happy that she can be herself with somebody and be herself around him, and he just gets her. And she's been dying to get them kisses, and she got them. Bryan says he's happy as hell, so good for them. That's my winners. Those are my winners if you were questioning. But nighttime, Amaya, she's up there telling Clarke that she's finally coupled up with somebody that makes her feel good. Like, they share the same love language, physical touch, and she feels good. But Nick is down there telling Ace, I think he was, telling him that it's bittersweet because he was excited to be closed off, but it's not meant to be. We knew it wasn't meant to be. We know why you closed off. You closed off to shut Elan off from getting to Cierra. But let TikTok tell it. He might have been trying to get to you. But Chelley ends up asking Olandria about her night because she saw her and Nick holding hands. But the boys, they're down there screaming, having a pillow fight or whatever. And Olandria's like, we fucking with some little boys at this point, basically. But they're all in bed and a condom is getting passed around. I'm like, this cast might be the most forward with their horniness. Because I feel like out of all the cast, this cast has had the most sex in that common area. Like, they don't even wait to go to the hideaway. They be up there fucking right there in front of everybody. There's so many couples that have. I just find it interesting that the black girls have held their cooch locked up. They have. But everybody is sleeping at this point. The only couple that was really sleep was Ace and Chelley. They look like a married couple. You got Nick and Olandria. They're actually cuddling. We'll get to that later on. Amaya and Bryan, they're tonguing each other down. Iris and Pepe are under the covers. Huda and Chris are as well, but we'll get to Huda and Chris, what they was doing later on. But the next day, they're getting woken up by babies. I was like, here we go. This is about to be boring. It actually was entertaining. I was thoroughly entertained with this whole entire baby situation. But Ace and Chelley, they're in the confessional with their babies. They have twins. I'm a twin. If y'all don't know that, I have a twin sister. My twin sister, I'm 2 minutes older than her. So it was interesting watching them with a boy and a girl, because that's how my parents were with me and my sister. But Chelley is sitting in there in the confessional cussing, and Ace is like, watch your mouth around the baby. Why are you cussing around the baby? But they all got a text telling them that they get to enjoy their bundles of joy as they are parents for the day. So everybody's walking around with the babies and whatnot. Chelley and Ace, they named their baby Chase, which is a combination of Chelley and Ace. And Apollo, he says the third one is cooking and he might get lucky, a.k.a. because Chelley kept that thing on lock. Smart girl. But Amaya and Bryan, they named their baby Elijah. I forgot to mention Iris and Pepe. So y'all tell me what their baby name is. But the two couples that really look like they're actually supposed to be parents are the two that I just stated, Amaya and Bryan and Ace and Chelley. But those two couples, like I said, they look good together as parents. Nick and Olandria named their baby Hilton, as they thought in the moment it was a girl. We'll get to it. But Taylor and Clarke named their baby Alea. And actually, Taylor and Clarke, they impressed me, especially Taylor. I was shocked, but we'll get to it. But Chris and Huda, they were struggling to find a name, but they eventually go with Layla. And she ends up stating that she don't miss the crying. Like, everything kind of locked her back into mommy mode. As soon as she heard about the baby and whatever, she locked in. But she ends up asking him how many kids he wants, and he says 5 or 6. The look on her face, I was like, But Clarke, Taylor, and Ace, they're at the dock with the babies. The boys had the babies. Taylor was very hands-on with the baby, which was quite interesting to me. I'm like, this is actually probably going to be a turn-on for Clarke, because it seems like he actually would be a pretty hands-on dad, which is a good sign for Taylor. But they're sitting there talking about how the other boys and the other girls have their babies. They're sitting there talking about how Pepe is over there cooking with the baby on the counter, which was literally a point to be made. The baby was laying on the counter. He over there cooking with the baby on the counter, and the baby might fall off. I said, exactly. He said, Bryan over there holding the baby with no harness. I was dying laughing. But Taylor says that's the problem with this generation. We got parents that are not ready to be parents. I said, Taylor, that's the smartest thing you've ever said on this show, because it's the truth. It is the truth when it comes to this generation. A lot of kids out here now are raising kids. Me personally, I feel like if I had kids around 25, 26, I would be ready. Like, I have a natural paternal instinct. Like, my little cousins, I've always been a disciplinarian. I've always had, like, a fatherly type of energy about me, which is why I know I would be a great dad. I already know I do. That's why I can't wait for that day to happen. But what he said is true. It's true. But Nick and Olandria, their child is actually a boy. They find out because Olandria is sitting there changing the diaper, and I'm sure she saw what she saw, and they're like, oh shit. And they was like, we're gonna name the baby Marcel. But Bryan and Amaya, they're leaving their baby. They got the baby sitting over there, they leaving the baby, and Amaya comes screaming back, talking about something, don't call CPS. I was cracking up laughing. They are funny together. But Taylor, like I said, seems very hands-on. He's got the baby more than Clarke. Clarke is sitting over there chilling. Like, she ain't got nothing to do. But Ace looks like he is as well. Ace is taking it serious too. I was shocked that those two were the two that seemed to be the most hands-on. But Olandria is trying to take Ace's do-rag to go give for her son, which that was funny. But Amaya, Chelley, and Clarke, they're upstairs in the makeup room now, and they're talking about how the boys are doing really, really good with the babies. But now that the girls are getting ready, the boys are essentially having to realize, okay, well, we got to do this shit on our own right now while they're up there getting ready. But the boys, they're downstairs chilling with their babies. They're all sitting around each other. Taylor's sitting there cussing in front of the kids. Ace is checking him about it too. But they start talking about Bryan and Ace leaving the babies. Is it Ace? I think it was Bryan and Amaya. Regardless, Bryan was like, he's Latina. Look, he out here in the sun. We love the sun. He's Latina. That was funny. But Kristen says his job is easy because Huda is actually already a mom. We're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to how easy that is. But Huda is telling the girls how she naturally got into mommy mode, and she's telling us that having a kid is a unique experience, but it's normal for her. Like, she's grateful for being a mom. But Iris then asks them about like what their nights have been like and whatever. And Huda's like, how was yours? Because we heard that kissing and stuff. All of y'all was in there kissing. Like, all of y'all, except for Ace and Chelley, they were actually asleep. But Bryan, he's got the baby, and his baby starts crying first. Then it's Chris and Pepe's. Amaya and Chelley, they're now watching outside the window. So Nick goes over to work out with the baby, and Ace follows over there with his, and they're talking about the night. And Nick talks about how like he came into the night with Olandria really platonic, but they started cuddling, and she started backing that thing into him. And you already know Nick probably got nervous. He got excited. And he basically talks about how he had all these flutters in his body, aka y'all know that nigga was brick as shit in that bed with her. And Ace was laughing just like I was laughing. But he then says, like, if she don't stop, it's going to get a little bit crazy in here. You wouldn't last with Olandria. If you can't last 40 seconds with Cierra, he probably will bust in 10 seconds. Excuse my language. In 10 seconds with Olandria. He might not even make it 10 seconds. But Ace then says that this is not something that my daughter needs to be hearing. And pulls the baby over. Ace is funny. But Ace then says, like, was she receptive? And Nick was like, yeah, she was. And that was the crazy part. I wasn't really expecting it. You could tell Nick is trying, which is so, the whole time this shit was happening, I was like, what is Cierra thinking right now? Because we know Sierra's at home. And y'all, speaking of Cierra, we all know she was wrong for what she did, and you can hold her accountable. But y'all sitting here sending her death threats and stuff, and then acting like her mental health does not matter. Yes, she was wrong for doing what she did and saying what she said, but she's still a human being at the end of the day. And if y'all think that going around harassing somebody, sending them death threats, doing all that stuff that y'all like, that's the problem with this new fan base. Like, it's great that the show gets popularity and stuff, because that just makes the show continue to grow and we get more seasons. But if it comes at the price of this, I don't want that shit. Like, y'all need to chill out. Like, the shit that y'all been doing this, and I'm talking to the people that it needs to be heard to. You know, I'm not talking to you, ain't gonna say nothing. But I just think it's crazy how it's been so negative around this season. When I say negative, just the fans, like all the stuff that y'all doing, y'all are low-key ruining the show. But I just hate it. I pray for her mental health, but I also pray that she goes and sees somebody to figure out what's going on with those thoughts upstairs. Even though with the whole comment that she made, I see a lot of people didn't understand, or at least didn't know that was offensive. I was one of the people that did know it was offensive. But yeah, regardless, lay off of her. Like, you can hold her accountable, but like, doing too much in her comments, that's too much. But yeah, me stating Cierra though, I was sitting there thinking, like, how is she feeling watching this at home, knowing that he closed off with her and he's so eager to get back into it with Olandria, also knowing that they kissed and they pretty much told her like it was just friendship shit, and now she gets to watch it herself at home. And I wonder if she is watching it. But Ace says, like, are you open to it? And Nick says, yeah, for sure. So we then move to Huda, who was telling the cast that Chris is going to lead them in a yoga session with the babies. So they all got their kids and whatever. And Chris puts the baby in the seat. Chris put the baby on the seat. There was like this little, y'all know what I'm talking about. He put the baby there. And like, I don't know if he was about to leave the baby there, but regardless, Huda came running over immediately. No, she can't hold her head up. And I was like, damn, you doing too much. But then again, I had to check myself. I'm like, she's a little bit different. She's a different case when it comes to everybody else in this house. She actually got a child. And with Chris, it's like, that's where I was like, I can't fully be mad at her for this. Because I'm like, when I'm sitting here thinking about it, she has an actual live child right now that I think is 4 years old. So say they were to work outside in the real world and he's around, he's going to be around that child too, which means to an extent, you're going to have to be daddy. So how you going to act? So she's looking at him like, okay, everything that he does with this baby, this is going to tell me if this is going to work and if it's not going to work. And it's like, I can't be like, damn, she doing too much, even though she was doing too much. It's like, damn, it's just a challenge. But then again, I'm like, I can't state that to her whenever she has an actual child out here and she's trying to see if this is actually going to be a long-term relationship. But she tripping out. Oh, Huda came back. I was like, let's see how Chris acts, since he says that he sees something in her that we don't see, and he likes all of that spice and all that in it. Let's see if you like it now. But we'll get to it. But it was funny because she picked up the baby and the baby's head went I don't know if y'all got it, but my sister caught it and it made me laugh. But Huda then says like Chris is giving her anxiety. So she then tells us that she got to remember that he's never had a child before, which she does. And she was like, in the future, basically, if they ended up having kids, she needs to make sure that he's her person before having those kids. But Chris then runs them through the yoga session, essentially. So he goes through asking each couple about their child. He gets through everybody and does not even ask Huda, which I was like, you know, you can't skip Huda. Huda's a narcissist. And it's just like, again, I had to give her the benefit of the doubt. He went and asked everybody else, why don't you ask your mama, your baby mama, about y'all's child? So I'm like, I get where she's coming from, but she was doing too much. I said, you are right to feel a certain way that he did skip you in that moment, but let's not drag it. And of course, she dragged it. She dragged it, boy. She was in a sour, pissy mood the entire yoga session. And you could tell they felt it too. And I felt that tension between them. But she was like, fuck me then. And I was like, but he then takes them through as he ignored her. But they're going through it. They get into this like downward position. And Amaya's joking, talking about something. That's how Bryan had me last night. And they all started laughing. But Huda still aggravated as fuck. Aggravated as fuck. But they finish and she's still mad. She ends up getting a baby and she ends up asking Chris if he's going to put her mat back. Again, I couldn't be too mad at her in this moment because she did have the baby. So if you're going to look at it as a real situation, I got the baby in my hand. Are you going to grab the mat or do I have to do that too? That's what I was thinking in the moment. Yes, it looks like you doing too much because she was doing too much for a challenge, but it's like, she's a mom. Shout out to Tammy Talks. I'm a mom. But she tripping. She tripping. I was like, her life flashed before her eyes in this moment. But we got Bryan, Amaya, and Elijah. They're up in soul ties. Their baby starts screaming the minute they get up there. But Amaya's like, she trusts Bryan a lot. She was like, he's super calm and caring, and he's very like coddling. He's coddling with the baby. He's very paternal with the baby. But she says like, I'm a baby too. Come pick me up too. But she then tells him that he would make a great father because he's super calm with the baby. And she tells him that she wants to be a fun parent. Like, we all know she will be a fun parent. And she says she wants to do all the traditions and whatever, like have the baby thinking that there's a tooth fairy, there's Santa Claus. She wants to do all of that stuff that you would do with your child. Pretty much make sure the kid has a magical life, pretty much being able to dream or whatever. And he was like, hell yeah, he was in agreement with her. But he then tells her that she looks like a MILF. Amaya says that's why she gets in her confessionals and says, she tells Elijah, that's why I call your daddy, your father daddy. But Amaya's joking with him saying, you want some breast milk? And he was like, yeah, from you. And they start laughing. They got good banter. They just have natural good energy. Y'all, some of y'all be talking about that scamming and shit. I don't see it. I see a genuine connection from the two of them. Maybe call me delusional, but I do. My intuition will tell me if it's not. And I believe it's genuine. But Taylor and Clarke, they're talking to Iris and Pepe about parent life. Both seem very comfortable with the babies. Clarke wants 2 kids. Taylor wants all boys. Clarke's like, not happening. But they both agree that they will be good parents. And Iris then says that her purpose in life is to be a mom. And she was like, essentially the reason why I feel that way is because you're basically starting life all over again, just making a better version of yourself. I said, that's a nice way to really think about being a parent, because it's true. Like, you're literally producing offspring, and then you're raising that child to be better than who you are. That was beautiful. I loved hearing that. But the girls, they're upstairs now with their food. They got croissants and drinks, and they're cheersing to it while the boys are downstairs. And Ace is like, ain't this crazy how we sitting here with the babies and the girls are up there having fun? So they decide they want to go have some fun. So they want to go race each other. So they do these little obstacle courses with the babies. So they go trying to sneak off while the girls are upstairs. They're right upstairs. So they just look over the balcony and see what they're doing. So they're sneaking off, and the girls start noticing the boys are locking the babies in the strollers, and the girls are watching them, talking about something. They're doing a good job, and then they start racing each other. Ace cracked me up because Ace had both twins in one stroller. One of them was actually strapped in, the other one wasn't. I said, you better not do that shit in real life. But the girls, they're now seeing them racing. They're like, what are they doing? And they finally realize that they're racing each other, but the girls, they're trying to talk to them while they're doing it. And then they realize they're not even paying them no attention purposely. And they calling it the Daddy Olympics, and that's basically what it was. But Huda getting anxiety. She's telling Chris, be gentle, be gentle. This is where I was like, Huda, it is a plastic baby. It's not a real baby. But then again, I'm like, I keep going back. Can I really be mad at her? Because she's looking at this. She's looking at this seriously. But in this moment, I don't see Chris doing no shit like this with an actual baby. So in this moment, I'm like, you're doing too much. But Kristen tells her to shut up. It felt funny hearing it. Because it's like, damn, she's been telling everybody else to shut the fuck up. And somebody finally told her to shut her ass up. But that's not a good sign, though. Because he, like he said, he's used to emotionally unstable women. Which makes me think, have you been telling other women that you've been dealing with to shut the fuck up? I'm pretty sure he has. But she tells him, I'm going to need you to watch your mouth. So Bryan eventually wins the whole game. Amaya said, that's my baby daddy. But Taylor, Ace, and Chris, they finish around the same time. Nick finishes towards the end, but his baby did not cry the entire time. So that's a good sign for him. But Huda, she didn't ask Chris, like, what is wrong with you? Like, why are you ripping the baby's shit off of his head and all that shit while she's sitting there screaming? And Chris is like, our baby wasn't even screaming. They started bickering. Chris is telling us that he's stressed out because he don't know if it's just the mother in her, but she's bossy as fuck and she got an attitude. We tried to tell you. It was like, she always want to be in control, and it's like, it's okay to relax. Like, this is not real life. Remember he said that. Put a pin in it. We're going to get to it. But she then tells him to, again, not tell her to shut up. As long as you don't tell him to shut up, you can be good. But Nick and Olandria, they're recapping their day. They felt good about being parents. They talk about how their baby hasn't really cried as much compared to everybody else's. But Olandria, they start talking about kids or whatever. She wants 4 kids max, 2 as a minimum. Nick says 2 as a minimum for him and 3 as his max. But he says 4 would be a lot. Me personally, 3 is my max. But he then asked her directly after he told her that he wanted 3 and she said 4 as the max. He then asked her, would you want to be a single mom? I said, why would you ask her that? That's not something you would ask anybody. Like, why would anybody want to be a single mom? Why would you ask? I was like, why would you ask her that? Why would she say, you think she would say yes? Like, why would she want to raise kids by herself? But she then says, like, I mean, I wouldn't want to, but I mean, I would, if I have to, I would have to. Like, I've been raised by a single mom, so I would know essentially what to do, but who wants to do that? But he then says, like, it's important to have a 2-parent household. Like, his parents, they've raised him. Mine have too. Mine are still together. They just celebrated, I want to say, 35 years. But yeah, I mean, having a 2-parent household, and then my grandparents are still together too. Both of my grandparents are still living. Love that. I'm very grateful to have been on this earth for 30 years, damn near, and still have both sets of my grandparents, and they have still been together. Like, they're still together. My aunts and my uncles are still together. I've been lucky to see good examples because it's not that common anymore. But Olandria then says, like, she got even more attracted to Nick watching him pretty much being in dad mode. And he was super attentive to her and the baby all at the same time without even having to ask him. But Ace and Chelley, they're with their twins. They over here bickering, really on Ace's end. He was being petty and whatever, telling Chelley, talking about how Chelley was confused that their baby wasn't the same other baby that somebody else had because apparently they were wearing the same clothes. And he made it seem like she was like tripping out because she couldn't tell which one was hers. I'm like, hey, you doing too much. Relax. But he then tells us that him and Chelley essentially are good parents individually, but they got to work on coming together and doing it as a team. That's your fault. She seems like I don't think Chelley is really, she's not trying to not be a team. She's not trying to be individual and not working as a team. Ace is just nitpicking with her. And I felt like he was just doing too much in the moment. But they're pretty much going back and forth about who's giving who credit, whatever, who cares. But he then claims that she never said good job to him throughout the day. And she's shocked because she's like, I literally have. You haven't told me, but whatever. She was like, we're going to go to parent classes. And he's like, you're going to go. No, you. I said, But Chris and Huda, she's over there folding clothes. And you can tell just looking at her, she is not in the mood. But he then is asking her how she's feeling. She says, honestly, a lot of that shit was triggering to me. I'm not going to lie. He said, I can tell. So she then says, as a mom, I've pretty much done everything by myself. Basically, that's what she's stating. I wonder what the baby daddy got to say. But he then asks if there's something that he does wrong that affects her mood, because whenever she's in a mood, it affects his. And he'd be confused about what's going on. So she then says the 2 things today that irritated me was when you were telling everybody else to get something off their chest and you skipped over me. We already know. We already know how she feels about not being acknowledged. He acknowledges that. So she then says that she also brought the mats out and he could have put them away without her telling, and he was like, I did put it away. She said, yeah, but I asked you, and that's why you did it. You didn't do it on your own. Basically, she wanted him to do it on his own because she had the baby. But she then says it's not a big deal. It is a big deal to you, Huda. Stop trying to downplay it. Because if it wasn't a big deal, you wouldn't be this pissed. Like, you was pissed. But she was like, it's the little things that she pays attention to. So she says that he handled it well. She's telling us that he handled it well. And she can tell that he really likes her. And she likes that he's willing to fix the issues to make her happy. I said, what about making him happy? It's got to be both in a relationship. But he then says that's good information to know. This is where Chris pissed me off. And I was like, Chris, that's why y'all not going to work. But he then says that that's good information to know. And she asks, is there anything that she can work on? Huda asked somebody, is there anything she can work on? You should have told her everything that she should be able to work on. Because she actually asked you, whether she wanted to hear it or not, she asked you. What do you think he did? He says, yeah. She says, okay, so what? He says, give me a kiss. I said, nigga, what did you just tell us in that damn confessional, that she's bossy and she needs to always have control? And then why didn't you say that to her? Like, you could have given her constructive criticism to make her better. When you're in a relationship with somebody, you're supposed to make each other better. Not gonna work. Proved my point last night. People in the comments, they gonna work. I see a lot of stop signs. And it's not because I don't like Huda. It's not. I'm just being objective. I'm watching what they put on the TV. I see a lot of stop signs. But she was like, right now? He was like, yeah. And then they start looking at the baby. Huda turned down that kiss. I ain't never seen her turn down a kiss like that. Come on. But Taylor and Clarke, they were the parents that cared for their baby the best. Iris and Pepe were next. Huda and Chris and Nick and Olandria were next. Ace and Chelley and Bryan and Amaya failed the challenge. I wonder what the criteria was on passing the challenge tonight. Because in my opinion, I thought Amaya and Bryan, Taylor and Clarke, Iris and Pepe, and Nick and Olandria handled their babies the best. That was my opinion. The other two, I saw a lot of like, But everybody's getting ready for tonight. Amaya is feeling good with Bryan. Olandria says seeing Nick in dad mode makes him look even better. Nick is telling the boys like the physicality is there between him and Olandria. Amaya then asked Huda about her and Chris. And she was like, I mean, he about gave me a heart attack running across the villa with the baby. But Olandria is talking, this is so funny. Olandria is talking about how Chelley and Ace's baby is bad as hell. And Shelley's like, no, Marcel don't know how to fucking act. Olandria said he went to private school. He know what he doing. He good. I died laughing. But Taylor, he's telling Chris that he ain't ever been this way with a girl before like he is with Clarke. That's a good sign. These two, they're grown on me. Taylor and Clarke are definitely grown on me. I like their vibe. I actually like them as a couple. But it's time for the nighttime mingle. Nick and Olandria, they go have a chat. And he's talking about how like he took today as reality, which is why I can't really fault Huda completely. Because, I mean, you got to look at certain situations like that. And with her actually having a child, it's kind of hard to basically look at her like you doing too much. Because it's like, is she really? Because if she really wants to be serious with Chris, he's going to come out and have to deal with her child. But he said he's looking forward to kids. As we know, he's mentioned that before. But he says before this, he was actually looking on ChatGPT about how to adopt a child. And she was like, you really wanted to do that? And he was like, yeah, it was a thought in my head because he wanted a travel buddy. He wanted to pretty much travel the world and do that with his future kid as his parents did with him. So they start talking about how they both have been to Thailand. She went for her birthday last year. And he was like, he needs to go to Alabama. As we all know, she's from Alabama because he's never been there. And she ends up asking him, do you like college football? As we all know, if you don't know college football, you know Bama and Auburn. So this becomes a topic of conversation. So he ends up asking her if she likes Bama, if she's a Bama fan. And she said, no, I'm an Auburn fan. And before he could even say it, she said, watch it. Don't stop. She was dead ass serious too. Like you could tell she loves college football. I love college football too. I love college football. I love NFL. I love all sports. But she said she'd be at home watching college football every Saturday. There's nothing like college sports. Even outside when you're not in college sports, just the atmosphere. Whether you're watching it on TV or you're actually, if you ain't ever been, you got to go. You got to go, especially to one of them Power Fives. But he says that he loves that a lot. But he then says, like, the small talks that they have, it makes him feel like he's outside of the villa and it feels like a piece of home. And he thanks her for that. And she was like, that was sweet. Thank you, Nicky Poo. She called him Nicky Poo. I said, oh, we still on best friend terms. she ain't say Nicolas. But Chris and Bryan, they're having a conversation. And Bryan's talking about how good he feels around Amaya. He feels like the little things like her calling him babe. He loves that. He loves that, which is why I said they work well together. I hope they work together outside of the house. But he ends up asking Chris about how he's doing. And Chris was like, yeah, me and Huda had a little hiccup today, and it's because of the PTSD with her actually being a mom. And Bryan's like, yeah, it makes sense. You can't really blame her for that. But he then says, not Bryan, Chris then says that he feels like they're on a good road, essentially. And Bryan was like, yeah, everybody can see that. Can we? Can we? But Chris said that he folded. We all know what he meant by that. Bryan said, I knew it. I said, so they fucked. I said, that's two. That's two bodies that Huda done caught this season. And I was like, that makes sense why she was super emotional the very next day. We saw how she was when it came to Jeremiah when she gave up the cookies. So Chris was like, that was a great step into their physical connection and it made them stronger. I said, Chris, you watched because you wasn't here when Jeremiah got the cookies and you saw how she was acting. I wonder what tomorrow's gonna look like. I can't wait to see how they act tomorrow and see if the old Huda returns. But Ace and Nick, they're talking about Nick and Olandria's conversation. Chelley and Olandria are talking as well. Obviously, Chelley and Ace are very in this. They're in their camp because that's their best friend. Like Ace's best friend in the house is Nick. Olandria is Chelley's. And I was sitting here thinking, how is Cierra feeling watching this at home? As we know, they essentially were like a trio. But Olandria ends up asking, well, Nick said that he walked away feeling, Nick said he walked away feeling good, enjoying himself when it came to him and Olandria. And Olandria is telling Chelley, or asking her, does it look natural to you? And Chelley was like, yeah, it does. But I mean, I need you to give me a little bit more details. Olandria says that she likes Nick. That's what she said. We'll see. But Ace then says that he loves Olandria and this is good. Like, he was like, are you going to pursue this romantically? And Nick says, yeah, he is. Like, this is the experience. He wants to experience it. I said, Cierra. But Ace tells him he's genuinely happy for him. And Olandria tells Chelley that she's leaning into the process now. And she's like realizing that through the process, she realizes that she has to be selfish. She says she struggled with it pretty much having to pick Nick. Well, not even picking Nick, but before they were thinking about everybody else but them, essentially. And with her picking Nick, it felt like the first time that she actually put herself first without considering anybody else. And she was like, it felt good. And Chelley was like, I support you 100%, which this is why I've been saying it all season. Y'all know how much I've said it. Olandria and Chelley being together on the show from start to finish, that was just special to me in itself. Because Olandria could have went home, as we all know. But them actually being there together and having each other, you can tell that's just a safe space for them. And I love that because we got to see it again as we saw last season with Janae and Serena. Seeing two black girls on this show, because it doesn't normally happen where it's two of them that actually makes it from start to finish. And it's happening again this season. So I'm happy for that. But Chelley then says that as long as Olandria is happy, she's happy. And Chelley then tells Olandria that she is going to need her help because she's been thinking about planning a date for Ace. So she kind of runs her through what they want to do, and they head off to go get it done. Chelley says that she couldn't do it with anybody else but Olandria because that's her go-to, that's her girl. So she said that she wanted to go all out for Ace because he's been super creative with her when it comes to the dates. And she just wanted to give him this token of appreciation to let him know that she appreciates him and that he deserves it. So they finished the setup. It's like a little s'more setup around like a campfire over there by the fire pit. And he's cheesing. She goes and pulls him. He's cheesing ear to ear. This made me buy into Chelley and Ace. Y'all know how I can't stand Ace for what he did to Jeremiah, but I ain't going to hold you. This was cute. This was a cute little scene. I enjoyed the genuine moments like this with Chelley and Ace. Like, you can tell they genuinely really like each other. That's just what I'm getting. They've grown on me the last couple of days. But he's smiling. Like I said, smiling from ear to ear. He said, this is fire. It's really thoughtful. He gives her a kiss. And she was like, it makes me happy that I put a smile on your face. So then he teaches her how to roast the marshmallows because she ain't ever really done it before. He's teaching her how to make the s'mores and whatever, and they cheers to it and they eat their s'mores. But this is where it really started to sell on me. He said that this is one of the most thoughtful things that has ever happened to him. And he's been thinking about home. And this kind of brought him back to his childhood. And he was talking about that. And he tells us that he's careful with the people that he shares his affection with. And now that he's gotten to this place with Chelley, he wants to go 10 times harder for her. And it's the best feeling in the world. I said, I like this. I like this. I ain't get my vote. Because I can't give an ace a vote. I can't give an ace a vote when he cheated his way to the end by getting out your stiffest competition. But I will say I did enjoy them, and I do enjoy them. I feel like I'm enjoying them now. I am. But y'all can vote for him. I know y'all gonna vote for him, but y'all know who I'm voting for. But I enjoyed this scene. But Iris and Pepe, they're talking about the baby. She tells him he was gentle with the baby. He said it was cute seeing her in another element or whatever. And they start talking about how close she is with her mom. Her mom is basically like her best friend. She's very picky with the men that she dates. She tells her if she likes them or not. But they end up talking about them cuddling and kissing. And Pepe pretty much says that he been wanting to kiss her all day. I said, they really ain't thinking about Hannah and TJ. I said, they ain't thinking about them at all. One thing leads to another, and they tonguing each other down. I said, oh, Hannah and TJ, y'all might as well go find each other. But Amaya ends up getting a text that says the hideaway is now open and they have to choose a couple to send on a private night together. I personally thought they were going to choose Ace and Chelley because they're the couple that has really essentially been together the entire time. They haven't been together the entire time, but they've been basically fooling with each other the entire time out of everybody else that's there. But they chose Amaya and Bryan. I'm excited for them. Everybody's jumping up and down, excited for them. Bryan's excited with the boys. Amaya's upstairs jumping up and down with the girls. And Amaya was like, I'm going to shave my ass crazy. She was like, but I'm ready. Olandria and Amaya, they're helping her put the lingerie on. She was like, I'm glad they got some lingerie. Give me your best lingerie because I ain't did nothing but pack some granny undies. Amaya she's a comedian. But the boys, they're down there telling Bryan, just walk out there with your boxes on. But the boys, they're downstairs jumping around while Amaya is still upstairs getting ready with the girls. But Amaya, she finally comes down. She's giggling and laughing, and Bryan's laughing because he was like, I can hear that laugh already. But she comes down acting like Amaya, shaking and stuff. And she was like, hi. He was like, damn, you look good. But they walk on off. Everybody's cheering them on. And they made a rap. I had to write it down. It was funny. The boys talking about some, oh shit, it's time to play. Amaya and Bryan in the hideaway. And then the girls are sitting there talking about, eat that kitty in the hideaway. I was dying. I was like, this cast is crazy. They are a fool. But those two, Amaya and Bryan, head off to the hideaway. They look like they was getting it on in that hideaway tomorrow. Iris and Pepe, they in there fucking in the damn common room again. And one couple is going home. If it was up to me, I would send Huda and Chris home. Just my own personal. Shout out to Jamie, that's me. But honestly, the couple that I think is probably gonna go home, which I can't believe I'm about to say, I don't want Taylor and Clarke to go home. I would send Iris and Pepe home, honestly. I don't want Huda in the house. My own personal reasons. But if we going strictly off connection for real, Iris and Pepe just recently got together. And I feel like theirs is the most... I was going to say theirs is the most forced, but really is it? Because you got Nick and Olandria, though. But I feel like they building... I feel like they building something. At least I do. I feel like they trying. But Iris and Pepe are too. But I don't know. Who would y'all send home? I know I'm going to tell you who my final four couples are going to be. This is my prediction. This is what I think is going to happen. I think we definitely going to have Amaya and Bryan. We're going to have Huda and Chris. We're going to have Chelley and Ace. And Nick and Olandria. That's the final four that I see. That's what I see. Who wins? I'm putting my money on Amaya and Bryan. I feel like Huda and... I don't know. Because Nick and Olandria got a lot of fans too. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. But y'all let me know what y'all think down below in the comments. Share the video. Thumbs up the video if you haven't already. Subscribe if you're new. We're on the road to 15K. 20K really, but 15K. And I will see y'all tomorrow. Peace.